And so the upshot of all of it is that the left wants to tank the U.S. economy in order to punish President Trump for the crime of having been elected by most American voters.
Well, I've been upset by some of the actions of the Trump administration, specifically as it relates to kind of a mass secret police, I think, terrorizing American cities is how I would describe it. Ask people to resist and unsubscribe. If you look at where Trump has backed away from policies, it's not because of protest or even the courts. It's been when the markets respond. So when he backed away from the notion of annexing Greenland or away from punitive kind of irrational tariffs, it was when the bond market or the S&P collapsed. And right now, only 10 companies make up 40% of the S&P, and those companies are highly dependent upon subscription revenues. So I wanted to send a signal that people have kind of this weapon hiding in plain sight, and that is their non-participation, specifically to unsubscribe from big tech platforms. So I built a site, Resist and Unsubscribe, where you can learn how to easily unsubscribe from different big tech subscription platforms. I'm getting about 100,000 unique sites a day. I think we're going to get somewhere between 300,000 and 1 million unsubscriptions. But I want to send a signal to Americans that the most radical act in a capitalist society is non-participation, and that you have power to decide where you want to spend your money and where you don't want to spend your money.
So this is Scott Galloway. He's a professor of marketing at New York University's Stern School of Business. He's an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. He started a number of firms. His most successful one was called L2 Inc., which digital media analytics firm. He sold that to Gardner. He made $150 million and from that sale. So he's made a substantial amount of money. He has also been a part of, not a mutual fund, but a hedge fund or a private equity fund. Now, this activist fund, I think, controlled at its apex $1 billion. It then eventually closed down. It's now defunct. So an activist fund is one that uses money to go around and leverage it to socially engineer to get certain behaviors, certain activity done the way they want it done.
Well,
this failed.
It's interesting because he starts off by the spot right where you stop the clip. He's talking about, how to spend your money. And this guy's given $12 million to UCLA, $4 million to UC Berkeley. Now he's talking about how he's going to save $200 by canceling his extra subscription to some paywall thing.
Well, what's interesting is that in 2017, he publicly called for DOJ to use antitrust law to break up Apple, Meta, Amazon, and Alphabet. But he has been after, so the things that he's calling for now, he's been after for some time, right?
I want to be clear, Piers. I don't have perfect moral clarity around this, and I'm not telling people which platforms they should unsubscribe from or if they shouldn't go into work. I'm a guy like you who has some economic security, so I don't want to lecture. I don't want to be generous with other people's time or money.
Economic security means rich.
Yeah.
I don't know why he doesn't just say rich.
It means very rich, not just rich, very rich.
What I'm suggesting is that if, like me, you go on, you can find out that you might have 3 Apple TV Plus accounts. You didn't realize it. But maybe you don't need 3 LLM subscriptions. I found out when I unsubscribed from Amazon Prime, I was a member of Amazon One Health, and I'd been paying $200 a year for the last 6 years. Do you need 2 ride-hailing programs? But I'm going to be transferring my assets out of Goldman Sachs into the RBC branch in Minneapolis. I'm going to sell down my Apple and my Amazon stock. I'm going to try and lead by example here, but I want to be clear. I'm not perfect. I will still always opt for my economic security. But the people who take time on a Saturday to protest, the people who are registering people to vote, the people some people decide not to go into work, that's a real sacrifice. What I'm stating is the biggest impact relative to the amount of disruption in your life is simply to unsubscribe from one or more big tech platforms. Do you need 6 streaming media platforms?
Makes good sense. There's nothing inherently wrong with a person going through and clearing out their duplicative accounts occasionally. I think that's just wise household management. You don't want to have 2 Amazon accounts if you don't need to have 2 Amazon accounts.
Plus, you can save $200 a year, Jeff.
Well, you could save $200 a year. But if you add that up, there are lots of different things you might end up saving. And for most people who don't have $150 million plus, saving $1,000 a year might be very beneficial. You might be able to save that money or
might be
use
a
that money
necessity.
to buy steak, to pay your rent. So that is all good advice. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with what he said there. But what I do think is inherently wrong is his suggesting that you disinvest from companies, right? If you give up, if you quit, let's just say quitting Amazon, then Amazon, and now let's say that legions of people follow Scott Galloway's desire, his wish, his plan, and they too leave Amazon. Amazon needs fewer workers. So Amazon lays people off. Now, fewer people have a job, they have money coming in, and they're able to buy fewer things. And so this has a ripple effect regardless. This is sort of like the butterfly effect in chaos theory. One thing you do over here for social reasons may have some effect way over here that you don't see. This is a much clearer connection than a chaos theory.
Really, the left's goal is to just dismantle the Trump economy. And they're going to try to figure out any way they can. And
right.
all they want to do is slow or stop Trump. That's all they're interested in doing.
And so that's fine, but that's a political motivation. And so if he is willing to sacrifice the overall economic health of our economy to pursue his political aims, then he, being this person with economic security, is willing to harm people with much less economic security for his own political benefit.
Look up the word elitist.
Let me bring the panel back. Michael Knowles, what's your response to this campaign by Scott Galloway?
Well, I think it's a desperation play, particularly after President Trump won the popular vote, particularly on the issue of mass deportations and illegal immigration, because what it sounds like the professor is doing is calling on people to punish tech companies not merely for supporting Trump or in some cases in any way supporting Trump, but because he rightly observes they're propping up the U.S. stock market. And so the upshot of all of it is that the left wants to tank the U.S. economy in order to punish President Trump for the crime of having been elected by most American voters. I get it. If my party had just been vanquished at the polls and if the other party had unified government, I might be trying to make these desperation plays too. I think it's contrary to the common good. I think if the U.S. economy actually did take a serious hit, that would really hurt people, some of the people that the professor claims to speak for. I think it's unpatriotic generally, but I kind of get it because they've tried their electoral and political and legal means. They tried to take out Trump 10 ways from Sunday, and it hasn't worked. So I guess the last attack is let's try to destroy Amazon.com.
I mean, response.
Yeah, we don't know each other, but I can guarantee you there's almost nothing that's desperate about my life.
There's almost nothing desperate about my life.
There's something desperate about that answer. He didn't say he was desperate. He didn't say that.
Michael Knowles does not say anything at all about Scott Galloway's life, right? He's not talking about Scott. He's talking about Scott Galloway's idea, his initiative, his proposed initiative. He's not talking about his life, him personally, his ethics. He's just misunderstood.
Listen, Knowles just hits him with a 5-gallon bucket of common sense, just point after point. He really, in my opinion, it's irrefutable. Knowles is pointing out facts, and Galloway is using these flowery liberal media terms about emotion, based in emotion, and based in taking a stance and social justice and all this malarkey. Again, Knowles is right on point on what the left is really, what this is really all about, which is stopping Trump. That's why they're trying to stop DHS. That's why they're trying to stop voting ID. That's why they're trying to do all the things they're trying to do. It's really just, and trying to shut down the government. It's because they're just trying to stop Trump.
You said DHS. Did you mean secret police?
Well, yeah, that's the other word we were. Yeah,
oh, okay.
It's one or the other. It's interchangeable.
All right.
Interchangeable.
Let's get back.
Two.
Not your life. The campaign is what I'm saying.
If you look at polls, I would argue that polls are not the president's friend right now. And what we have is probably the most unpopular president at this point in the presidency in history.
Unpopular with him.
Everyone has the right to decide where they're going to spend money and where they aren't. And we have a very fragile economy right now, which is 10 companies propping up the S&P and responsible for 70% of the earnings. And if somebody decides that they want to send a message to the administration and a message to the president and a message to these tech leaders who have been texting me how upset they are about these policies, but not speaking out publicly, then I think that's their right. And
what
I think
policies
that an
do you
economic,
object to, Professor?
well, having a mass secret police shooting mothers in the face or denying a
secret
person's
police?
first second.
You're referring to
Excuse me,
Border
sir,
Patrol.
please stop interrupting me. I'm just trying to
clarify.
I let you prattle on with your trafe.
Now let him prattle on with his.
Well, here's the thing. Scott Galloway right now is he's trained in marketing. He's a professor of marketer, and he's using political marketing right now. He's referring to describing DHS, Border Patrol as the secret police. He's describing a woman who physically struck a DHS police officer with a vehicle. Now, it wasn't a hard contact, but she made contact with him with her vehicle. And he describes her as
these are life or death decisions that are made in a split second.
But he's describing her as a mother, and so he's using emotional language rather than just being plain descriptions about what actually occurred. And
let me finish.
I'm just trying to understand what you're attempting to say. You're referring to Border Patrol and secret police?
Denying a person's First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights, putting 10 bullets in him, a person, an ICU nurse
You're
who
talking
is
about
taking
Alex
care,
Preddy and Renee Good?
is taking care of veterans, bringing the chaos of the border, having a mass secret police, tariffs that
What
make
is secret
absolutely
about
no
Border Patrol,
economic
Professor?
success and are declining or hurting the prosperity of Americans. I think there's a lot to choose from here.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify, because you say that you're very upset and we need to tank the U.S. economy in order to stop these awful Trump policies.
I did not say we need to tank the U.S. economy.
You said you want to damage the companies that are propping up the U.S. economy. So I'll just make the point.
I'd say it's your right to not support companies.
You say it's their right, but you're calling on them to do it. So you're encouraging them. This is not a neutral action. You're saying that you want that to happen, and you want it to happen because President Trump is deporting people, not through a secret police, through a very public police, which is Border Patrol and ICE.
Obama deported more people than Trump.
Excuse me, Professor.
Obama deported more people
by
than
the
Trump.
U.S. Congress, and the laws that President Trump won the popular vote to enforce after years of lawless neglect by Joe Biden. That's what you're saying. And your example that you point to is when a woman drove her 4,000-pound SUV into an officer and he rightly shot her because of that. You're saying that this is justification to ignore the law, ignore the 2024 election, and destroy the U.S. economy. Real smart stuff.
So you believe, well, there's just not a lot of common ground here, sir. You believe that woman was properly shot?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you drive your car into a cop, he's justified in shooting you.
Let's agree to disagree. And if you want to support these firms, you can. I've decided not to.
All right. I think you've made an unpatriotic.
Okay, so Scott Galloway says let's agree to disagree, but Scott Galloway does not take the arguments that were presented, essentially three arguments that were presented, and try to provide counter arguments or persuasion to show Michael Knowles, that he doesn't have it right. There's no back and forth. It's you make your statement, I make my statement. Now we're not going to engage in discourse or dialogue. Well, you don't get anywhere. It may be uncomfortable. It may be unpleasant, but you don't get anywhere unless there's that engagement with the facts and arguments and logic.
The famous, let's agree to disagree. No, continue to tell your points, and Knowles will continue to address them, but he's not interested in that because, like many on the left, they're usually one-dimensional positions. There's not a lot of depth and not a lot of nuance.
I don't know if you caught early on his Scott Galloway, claiming that he's going to move his money out of J.P. Morgan and he's going to put it in with RBC with a branch in Minneapolis. Now, I don't know. Maybe Scott Galloway has some contact with Minneapolis. Maybe he from my very brief cursory background check, I couldn't see any affiliation or association with Minneapolis. So I don't know if he's doing this as kind of virtue signaling or some statement.
Sure.
He seems to be set up in California and New York. Maybe he does have family there. I don't know. I don't see it.
I doubt it.
Decision, and I'm pretty certain you're going to fail, but it's certainly your right to try.
Well, I appreciate you granting me that right.
Scott, just finally, I mean, I've seen what you said about this on your own website. The most potent weapon to resist the administration is a targeted month-long national economic strike, a coordinated campaign that attacks
Economic strike. It's a coordinated economic strike. How could that not have repercussions for the larger economy when you are affecting the 10 largest components of the S&P, right?
tech companies and firms enabling ICE to inflict maximum damage with minimal impact on consumers. In sum, the shortest path to change without hurting consumers is an economic strike targeted at the companies driving the markets and enabling our president. Is there not a danger that if this is successful and there is a big month-long economic strike, that it could precipitate a much bigger problem with the market and ultimately end up really damaging your average consumer? In other words, how do you control it? If he starts going into free fall, if it did have huge take-up, what's the control valve? How do you not become Dr. Frankenstein?
Well, I think it's pretty easy. I think when the president moves back from the kind of edge of fascism, when he stops this nonsense talk about annexing Greenland, the market's immediately recovered. When he decides that these irrational, sclerotic, very anti-capitalist, socialist-like tariffs, where we're alienating our allies, when the bond market crashes, he pulls back from that and the bond market recovers. So I think that any damage inflicted on these companies' growth or on the markets could easily be walked back by deciding that, okay, federal agents should not be wearing masks. I don't think it would be very difficult at all. One, I love that you're getting this movement the credit that I hope it achieves. But like all of these other decisions, they've been easily walked back. I'm not looking for a change in government. I'm not looking for people to be imprisoned. I'm looking for some basic decency and a respect of co-equal branches of government, and for him to listen to the U.S. populace who distinctly believe and clearly have stated that they think that these mass police actions have gone way too far.
So I have to say, I think that there is nothing wrong with a person who can establish a movement and try to affect some kind of political change. He's entitled to do that.
Yep.
And he this is like a Bud Light. When people rejected Bud Light, there were economic consequences for Bud Light. And so people made that choice voluntarily. People can follow it or they can choose not to. I can't say that I disagree with his right to do that or his ability to do that here in the United States. If you have a concerted or coordinated effort against Amazon and Amazon's losing customers, then Amazon has to lay people off, then those people aren't earning money and so forth. That has real world effects. That is my chief criticism with Scott Galloway, is that it is naive for him to think or act as if this is not going to have some impact that will affect the economy.
I don't believe him. I got to tell you, to be honest with you, I don't believe. He says, I'm not looking for a change in government. Yes, you are. Of course you're looking for. I'm not looking for people to go to prison. Yes, you are. Of course you are. It's disingenuous. The whole purpose of his position is really, his appearances are all couched behind this app that he's developed, that he's trying to drive users to. And so we'll see how he does with that.
Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. If you're enjoying this content, we could use your support. Thank you.